Have a bullshit funeral, just make an announcement that Bernie Mac dead, but don't be dead for real. I be laying in the coffin, I just want to see the no good motherfuckers who do come to my funeral.
Bernie said, I walk alone. He said that all the time. We've heard it 1,000 times in interviews and everything.
You remember that Bernie Mac died from complications of pneumonia.
I feel that the beef between Bernie Mac and Steve Harvey was because Steve Harvey was getting a lot of network love during the time and Bernie Mac not so much.
Yeah, and then Bernie started to get it.
Bernie said in the GQ article that when he got Ocean's 11, Steve had reached out to the producer.
When Steve Harvey spoke at Bernie Mac's memorial service in 2008, he became emotional and said Bernie was the one who helped carry the Kings of Comedy legacy. But over the years, rumors and stories have continued to circulate about possible tension between the two entertainers behind the scenes. Now, it's important to keep this in the category of claims and opinions, not proven facts. Several people who were reportedly around both comedians at the time have suggested there may have been professional rivalry between them, and that's where things get even more interesting. Some reports and speculation have also pulled Steve's wife Marjorie into the conversation. According to these unverified stories, Marjorie allegedly encouraged Steve and believed he was just as talented, if not more suited, for certain opportunities. Whether that's true or not remains a matter of debate. Still, when people look back at old interviews and industry gossip from that era, they often point to comments that kept these rumors alive. For example, in a 2003 interview with GQ magazine, Bernie spoke about what he saw as competition within the comedy world and suggested that Steve was trying to land some of the same movie roles, including a part connected to Ocean's 11. According to the GQ article, there were claims that someone connected to Steve Harvey's camp reached out to Ocean's 11 director Steven Soderbergh and pushed for Steve to be considered for a role that Bernie was reportedly pursuing. Whether that effort had any impact is unclear, but the story quickly became part of the ongoing discussion about competition between the two comedians. When asked how he felt about the situation, Bernie appeared calm and focused on the bigger picture. He told GQ, "The Hollywood game that we are in, it's a cold game." Rather than getting pulled into public back-and-forth drama, Bernie explained that he preferred to stay focused on his own career and success. The sad thing about it is all of us are doing well, so I don't really see the problem. It didn't bother me because I see the big picture. When they told me about it, what could I do? I'm not gonna sling mud. I'm not a rapper. I tell jokes. I try to make people laugh. I'm not gonna sling mud. Steve and anybody else can say whatever they want to say. Ain't nobody got no control over me. I have the control. Bernie didn't stop there either. He also suggested that Steve had a larger-than-life ego and pointed to moments from the Kings of Comedy performances as an example. At the time, those comments added even more attention to the rumors of tension and rivalry that fans were already talking about.
They used to let Steve Harvey be the headliner of the Kings of Comedy. They used to let Steve Harvey was the headliner because at the time he was having he was the most famous.
Right.
But he was bombing too many nights coming behind Sid and Bernie. They had to make him the host. But Steve Harvey found a way. Even though he wasn't talented, he still found a way.
Bernie continued by saying, "So yeah, I knew about it. Did it piss me off? Nah, you can't piss me off. You ain't that good." That response showed how determined he was not to let industry drama distract him from what mattered most. Over time, Bernie spoke about feeling disconnected from the entertainment scene and explained that his priorities were shifting away from Hollywood and toward his personal life.
There wasn't anything for me out there, Bernie told GQ. Speaking about his family, he added, "I had the best right here at home." Those comments gave fans a glimpse into where his focus was during that stage of his career and why he seemed less interested in chasing the spotlight. Then, in 2010, 2 years after Bernie's passing following a serious illness, Steve Harvey addressed the controversy during an appearance on Conversations with Ed Gordon. When asked about Bernie's claims that he had tried to take movie roles from him, Steve pushed back on the accusation. "I was upset at first because it just wasn't true. Me and Bernie had a lot of good times together, And then this article in GQ came out and put all this vicious stuff in there, Steve said. In other words, Steve suggested that the article amplified the conflict and presented the situation in a harsher way than he believed was accurate. However, some observers pointed out the GQ had quoted Bernie directly, which kept the debate alive and fueled years of speculation about what really happened behind the scenes. Some critics have argued that Steve's response downplayed how much tension may have existed between him and Bernie. However, it's important to note that the true nature of their relationship remains a matter of debate, with different people sharing very different versions of events. Over the years, several comedians and industry figures have offered their own opinions about how success was earned in the entertainment business. One of those voices was Corey Holcomb, who had connections to Bernie's comedy circle.
You need to find a talentless comedian who made it and ask him, what do you have to do to get it? Even though I could tell you, it's either kiss or boys. Steve Harvey kissed, that's how he got it. Everybody thinks Steve Harvey's some stand-up ass man. No, motherfucker, he kissed the old girl who owned TV One. He used to kiss her. That's how he had the radio show out here.
Corey suggested that Bernie and Cedric the Entertainer were stronger performers and questioned why Steve received some of the biggest opportunities at the time. Because of comments like these, fans have spent years speculating about whether there was a genuine rivalry between Steve and Bernie behind the scenes. While some people believe there was professional competition, others maintain that the stories have been exaggerated over time. What remains clear is that the debate continues to spark conversation whenever their names come up together. Cedric the Entertainer also touched on the subject during an appearance on Club Shay Shay, where he suggested that a Kings of Comedy sequel might have been possible if certain relationships and disagreements had played out differently. His comments added even more intrigue to the long-running discussion about the dynamics between some of comedy's biggest stars. As the conversation continued, attention eventually shifted to Steve's personal life and his relationship with Marjorie Harvey. According to Steve's own retelling of the story, the two first met in 1990 at a comedy club in Memphis, Tennessee, where he was performing. Marjorie arrived late with a friend, and Steve has said that he stopped what he was doing and told the audience that she was the woman he would marry one day.
At the time, Steve was married to his first wife, Marcia. Over the years, rumors and speculation have surrounded the timeline of those relationships, but many of those claims have never been independently confirmed. What is publicly known is that Steve and Marjorie eventually divorced, and years later, Steve and Marjorie built a life together.
Sitting here, the stage was here, so he's just quiet. He just keeps staring at me, so I'm waiting on him to make me a part of the show so we can get on with the show. So he stayed quiet so long, staring at me. Now everybody in the club is looking at me. And so he finally realized, okay, I got to say something. He was like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know who this is, but I'm going to marry her.
But I kid you not, the first word I ever said to her was, I don't know who you are, but I'm going to marry you one day. That's the first thing I said.
Some stories from that era also claim that Marjorie was focused on ambition, success, and a certain lifestyle. However, accounts vary widely, and many details have remained the subject of speculation rather than established fact. After Steve and Marjorie went their separate ways, Marjorie's life took its own path, and years later, the two eventually reconnected. By that time, Steve's career had grown significantly, with major comedy tours, television appearances, and his role in the original Kings of Comedy, helping raise his profile in entertainment. When they reunited, their relationship moved forward, and they eventually got married. Steve also embraced a larger family life, and the couple became one of the most talked about pairs in the entertainment world. Their story has often been presented as a case of reconnecting after years apart and finding success together. As for Bernie Mac, some commentators and internet discussions have speculated about whether people around Steve viewed Bernie as strong competition in the comedy and film world. However, there is no verified evidence showing that Marjorie played any role in professional decisions involving Bernie. Most of those claims remain rumors and fan theories rather than established fact. The conversation around comedians, fame, and relationships has also been fueled by remarks from other entertainers over the years.
One comment that often gets brought up comes from Cott Williams, who said about comedians who sign a contract and get a light-skinned, weird-faced wife. Some people online have speculated that Steve Harvey fits the type of person Cott Williams was talking about, but that's ultimately a matter of opinion rather than fact. Bernie Mac's story, on the other hand, is often highlighted as an example of a long-lasting relationship. Bernie and his wife Rhonda met when they were young, married early, and stayed together through the ups and downs of life and his rise in entertainment. Before the fame, Bernie worked regular jobs to support his family, and many fans admire how the couple remained committed to each other throughout his career. After Bernie's passing in 2008 following a serious illness, many people continued to point to his marriage as one of the most stable parts of his public story. Steve Harvey's relationship history followed a different path. He was married to Marcia, with whom he had 3 children, and later married Mary Shackelford. Both marriages eventually ended, and aspects of those divorces received public attention over the years. As with many public figures, those personal chapters became the subject of media coverage and public discussion.
I've never seen them have anything that I ever wanted. If you sign up for their program, you get a light-skinned, weird-faced wife that never do an interview. Listen, in 20 years, won't do an interview. Nobody's ever talked to her, and that she's never been interviewed anywhere. And now, understand, I'm not talking about one person. What I just told you applies to 7 people. How they all end up with that. That's part of what you get. I came in this business saying I was going to expose.
Some critics have pointed to the timing of Steve Harvey's reunion with Marjorie and questioned how their relationship came back together after his career reached a new level of success. Supporters, however, see it differently and view their story as 2 people reconnecting later in life when the circumstances were finally right. Around the same period, Bernie Mac's career and legacy remained a major topic of conversation among fans and fellow comedians. Bernie passed away in 2008 following a serious health battle at the age of 50, and his loss had a huge impact on the entertainment world. His talent, stage presence, and influence on comedy are still remembered today. Over the years, various online theories have emerged whenever well-known public figures experience unexpected health challenges. One example often mentioned is Kim Porter, whose passing generated widespread public discussion and speculation. However, many of the claims that surfaced online were never verified and remained the subject of debate rather than established fact. People have also pointed to the health struggles of singer Al B. Shore, who faced a major medical crisis in 2022 and spent an extended period recovering. Afterward, he spoke publicly about his experience and shared personal concerns and questions about what happened. While those comments attracted significant attention, many details remain uncertain, and there is no confirmed evidence supporting the numerous theories that circulated online. People on social media have often tried to connect unrelated events involving celebrities, especially when unexpected health issues or losses make headlines. Over the years, names like Heavy D, Brittany Murphy, and others have frequently been brought into these online discussions, with many theories spreading across the internet. Heavy D passed away in 2011 due to a serious medical condition, while Brittany Murphy and her husband both experienced tragic health-related situations within a relatively short period of time. Because these events received so much media attention, they continue to be discussed years later by fans and commentators. More recently, Jamie Foxx's health emergency in 2023 sparked intense speculation online after details were initially kept private. Jamie later confirmed that he had experienced a serious medical issue, though much of the public discussion was fueled by rumors rather than verified information. Some internet personalities and podcast hosts have also shared their own theories about various celebrity events. However, these claims are often based on personal opinions and should not be treated as established facts. While fans continue to search for connections between public figures and major headlines, many of these narratives remain speculative and unproven. And that's really where this story starts to split into 2 completely different versions. On one side, you have people who believe there were deeper rivalries,
private disagreements and industry politics that the public never fully saw. On the other side, you have those who think years of rumors have turned normal professional competition into something much bigger than it actually was.
Years ago, I posted some information that was, basically trying to save my life. And thank goodness to my ex, the wonderful Kim Porter, the late Kim Porter, who, kind of warned me all along the way to, just kind of watch your back, so on and so forth. And I didn't understand why.
Because of Diddy.
Basically.
Do you believe that she died of pneumonia?
Absolutely.
What makes this situation so fascinating is that Bernie Mac isn't here to add any more context to the conversation. Because of that, fans keep going back to old interviews, old clips, and old comments, trying to piece together what the relationship between these comedy legends was really like. Even today, people still debate whether Bernie's remarks were simply about competition in the entertainment business or whether they reveal the more personal frustration with how opportunities were handed out behind the scenes. The truth is, only a small group of people were actually there when these events unfolded. And the more former comedians, industry insiders, and friends speak up, the more questions seem to surface instead of answers. One reason this topic refuses to fade away is because so many people from that era have shared different accounts of what was happening behind the scenes. Some describe the comedy world as highly competitive, where everyone was chasing the same opportunities, while others insist that personal relationships played a major role in who got ahead and who didn't. That contrast is what keeps fans digging through old interviews and public statements years later. Every time a forgotten clip resurfaces, people start comparing stories, looking for details that may have been overlooked the first time around. At the center of it all is the fact that Bernie Mac built a reputation for speaking his mind. Whether people agreed with him or not, he wasn't known for holding back his opinions. Because of that, many fans believe his comments reflected what he genuinely felt at the time, rather than something said for publicity. Meanwhile, Steve Harvey continued building a media empire with television, radio, and business ventures, becoming one of the most recognizable personalities in entertainment. The result is a debate that still divides audiences today, with both men's careers being examined from completely different angles whenever their names come up in the same conversation. What also adds another layer to this story is how differently Bernie and Steve were viewed by certain fans and fellow entertainers. Bernie was often praised for his raw, fearless style on stage, while Steve became known for expanding beyond stand-up and turning himself into a major television personality. Both found success, but they took very different paths to get there. Because of those differences, people naturally started comparing them. Some admired Bernie's straightforward approach and believed he represented the classic comedian who let the work speak for itself. Others respected Steve's ability to build a brand that reached far beyond comedy, opening doors in television, publishing, and business. Years later, those comparisons still spark heated discussions online. Every interview, podcast appearance, or old backstage story seems to give fans something new to debate. And the interesting part is that many of the people involved have shared only pieces of the bigger picture, leaving plenty of room for interpretation.
Fox, he got sick, almost died. Albie Shore, he got sick, almost died. Kim, pneumonia, she got sick. So Heavy D, sick. Justin Bieber, half of his fucking face dropped off. He survived. He playing a medical-induced warfare game. He's playing a medical warfare game.
That's why the conversation keeps evolving. New audiences discover these stories every year, revisit the old claims, and come away with their own conclusions about what really happened between some of comedy's biggest names. Another reason these stories continue to attract attention is because the Kings of Comedy era wasn't just a successful tour, it became a cultural phenomenon. Bernie Mac, Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer, and D.L. Hughley were all reaching huge audiences at the same time, and fans naturally became invested in the relationships between them. When a group reaches that level of success, every disagreement, rumor, or behind-the-scenes story tends to get amplified. A simple professional rivalry can end up being discussed for decades, especially when the people involved are some of the most recognizable names in entertainment.
What's interesting is that many fans who revisit these old interviews notice how differently the comedians approach success. Bernie often spoke about staying true to himself and focusing on his family, while Steve frequently discussed ambition, growth, and taking advantage of new opportunities. Neither approach is necessarily right or wrong, but the contrast has fueled endless conversations over the years. As more podcasts, documentaries, and interviews continue to revisit that period, new perspectives keep emerging. Some stories seem to support earlier claims, while others challenge them completely. And that's exactly why the debate surrounding this chapter of comedy history shows no signs of slowing down anytime soon. What makes this even more intriguing is that the legacy of the Kings of Comedy continues to grow with every new generation of fans. People who weren't even around during the original tour are now discovering old performances online and seeing firsthand why these comedians became such influential figures in the first place. As those audiences dive deeper into the history, they often come across the same questions that have been floating around for years. Were the reported tensions simply the result of strong personalities competing at the highest level? Or did certain disagreements leave a lasting impact that never fully went away? Those questions still spark debate whenever former colleagues or industry insiders share their memories. At the same time, it's important to remember that public interviews only reveal part of the story. Many conversations, decisions, and relationships happen away from cameras and headlines. That reality makes it difficult for anyone outside that circle to know exactly what was happening behind closed doors. What remains undeniable, though, is the impact these comedians had on the entertainment world. Their work continues to be celebrated, discussed, and analyzed years later, which is why old stories, rivalries, and unanswered questions continue to capture so much attention even today.
And that's why when them crackers and them feds read that paper, they was like, it's so many doctors and physicians. You got to think, if I'm a billionaire and I pay for your scholarships, right? I done got scholarships for so many. When I step to you and I need a favor, you going to be there. And now when you incriminate yourself, you forever guilty. You a part of the party. Now you got to come to the free calls. Because when I needed you to get that medicine or to slip that, he got stuff that he could slip in drinks and get you f***ed up for the rest of your life. Like, come.
And as more people revisit this era, another detail keeps standing out. The way different comedians from that generation remember the same events in completely different ways. One person might describe a situation as friendly competition, while another sees it as evidence of a much deeper conflict. That gap in perspective is a big reason why the conversation never seems to end. Over the years, countless interviews have resurfaced, and fans have analyzed nearly every comment for clues. A single statement can spark days of debate online, with some people convinced it confirms old rumors, while others argue it proves the exact opposite. The result is a story that continues to evolve long after the original events took place. What's also interesting is how much the entertainment industry itself has changed since those days. Social media, podcasts, and streaming platforms now give former performers and insiders more opportunities than ever to share their side of the story. Every new interview has the potential to introduce fresh details or challenge long-held assumptions. Because of that, the discussion surrounding Bernie Mac, Steve Harvey, and the Kings of Comedy legacy remains as active as ever. The more stories that emerge, the more people find themselves trying to separate documented facts, personal opinions, and decades of speculation that have become intertwined over time. As these stories continue to circulate online, some people have tried to connect a wide range of events and relationships in Hollywood. However, it's important to separate speculation from verified facts. There is no public evidence proving that Bernie Mac's passing was connected to anything else than the health issues that were reported at the time. What many fans do agree on is that Bernie built a reputation for staying true to himself, his family, and his comedy style throughout his career. That authenticity is a big reason why so many people still admire him and continue celebrating his legacy years after his passing. At the same time, Steve Harvey took a different path and expanded his career into television, radio, business, and entertainment on a massive scale. Because their careers unfolded so differently, comparisons between the two continue to spark debate among fans. But what do you think about the stories, interviews, and rumors we've covered today? Which version of events makes the most sense to you? And do you think the public knows the full story behind the reported tensions? Drop Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who remembers the legendary kings of comedy era.